is an amazing feeling. This is one of those things where somebody like me does not believe in God, in the divine. But when I'm here, I don't know, it feels like I don't know, I feel like I'm close to it, you know? Like something is there.
I like Christianity, and I have a very deep emotional connection to it.
I really like Jesus. I love Jesus, and I think he is the universe.
Is it true? Is Apostate Prophet one of the most prominent ex-Muslims and supposed atheists on YouTube? A Christian? Or perhaps a secret Christian? Did David Wood baptize Apostate Prophet in a clandestine ceremony at an undisclosed location with only their closest and deepest pocketed Patreon supporters in attendance? Could it be that Apostate Prophet has joined the likes of Ayaan Hirsi Ali in abandoning Islam and accepting Jesus as their Lord and Savior? Well, no. Hey everyone, Secular Spirit here, and this video is not actually about Apostate Prophet being a secret Christian. Just want to have a little fun there and indulge in a little clickbait. This video actually covers something about Apostate Prophet that has troubled me, speaking as a fellow ex-Muslim atheist who creates content criticizing Islam, and it's something that's troubled me for a while now. His consistent collaborations with David Wood, a Christian apologist with a ministry that preaches the gospel of Jesus Christ. And by consistent collaborations, I mean they've churned out, by my rough estimate, maybe upwards of 150 live streams that are typically more than 3 hours long, usually covering criticisms of Islam and prominent Muslims. So why exactly am I bringing this up? Is it against some sort of rule for an ex-Muslim to talk to a Christian or befriend them? Am I doing this video because I'm a secret Muslim or I still harbor a residual Muslim grudge against Christianity? Am I envious of Apostate Prophet's success? Or am I just piggybacking on friend of the channel Apostate Aladdin's recent video criticizing him in order to get attention? As a Palestinian, am I just lashing out at Apostate Prophet because of his support of Israel's violence and oppression towards Palestinians? I'll answer all of these questions and more in this video, but for starters I wanted to introduce the two main personalities in this topic for the uninitiated. Born in Germany to Turkish Sunni parents, Ridvan Ademir, better known as Apostate Prophet, left Islam and became an atheist in his early 20s while living in Turkey. After he moved to the US, he began posting videos criticizing Islam, and his popularity grew with his no-holds-barred views, and after participating in hugely viral, thoroughly unpleasant, and avoidably contentious debates with obnoxious Muslim advocates like Daniel Hakikachu.
Now you repeatedly call me apus, which is an insult. That was created by
you call me a pedophile.
One of your dear friends.
Pedophile advocate. That's what you're calling me, right?
Okay, I just want to clarify.
That's not. Is that an insult? Is that an insult?
No, it's a fact.
And Muhammad Hijab.
I would not have come here if Muhammad Hijab was here, because I made a debate offer to Muhammad Hijab, which Muhammad Hijab clearly rejected. Afterwards, Muhammad Hijab told me to commit suicide. He harassed my wife. He tried to dox me.
As well as for tearing up the Quran in one of his videos. Today, Apostate Prophet's channel has more than 113 million views and nearly 500,000 subscribers. I enjoy Apostate Prophet's pretty damn good Jordan Peterson impression.
What do you mean by God? What do you mean by do? What do you mean by you?
But I've never been a fan of the abrasive tone of his content, because I think it can push many questioning Muslims away and distract from the often nuanced and well-researched substance of his criticisms. Despite that, I've always seen the value of such an approach in attracting attention in our conflict-driven world. Since he started off, he's played a big role in helping normalize criticism of Islam on social media, and he also serves as a lightning rod that tracks Muslim criticisms, and that's made it a bit easier for other ex-Muslim content creators like myself. And for that role as a lightning rod, I don't envy his position at all. Many Muslims have responded to his popularity by threatening him and his loved ones. He's been banned in the past on Instagram, Twitter, and there's even a petition out there to ban his YouTube channel altogether due to the allegation that his work spreads anti-Muslim hate speech. And now if you scroll through Apostate Prophet's content, it won't take more than a few moments before you see a familiar name and face pop up: David Wood. So who's David Wood? Well, in a testimonial video he posted, he explains how he went from being an atheist to embracing Christianity after going to jail for attempting to murder his father.
Then it hit me that there are two possibilities. Either I'm violent and selfish and uncaring, and that's just the way things are, or there's someone who can help people like me. And when you start thinking like that, I'd say you're about 2 inches away from becoming a Christian, because when we ask ourselves, who out of anyone ever, who had the ability to take psychologically, spiritually, and morally shattered people and give them new life, we get a list of one.
With his newfound faith, David Wood co-founded a Christian ministry and launched several YouTube channels focused primarily on attacking what he believes is the biggest threat to all of us, theists and atheists alike: Islam. And that focus is what has brought these two men together, tackling the problem of Islam. On the surface, that sounds fine, but I can't help but think there had to be an elephant in the room from the first time they met. That many of the problems of Islam are also problems that can be found in Christianity. Apostate Prophet clearly knew firsthand the harms of Islam, that it destroyed countless lives with its teachings, countless families and communities, but from my perspective, the same can be said of Christianity. When I've shared this perspective, I've encountered many people, Christians and atheists, asking what's harmful about Christianity. It's mostly benign and just preaches love, they'll say. So let's go through why I think that. I want to clarify one thing first. Islam in its current form is more destructive and harmful than Christianity. But that doesn't mean that Christianity isn't also incredibly harmful. Two religions can be harmful and can even share in some of the same harms without them being equally harmful overall. Two things can be bad and worth criticizing even if one is worse. So with that out of the way, let's go through some of the shared harms of Islam and Christianity. Number one, they teach fear. How do these religions do this? Both teach us that we're missing something without God. We're incomplete without Him. It's the ultimate fear of missing out. To attain peace, to be complete, to finally be truly and fully happy, we need salvation from God, or we need to submit to God. Those are the common wordings of Christianity and Islam respectively. Christians talk about the need to surrender to God, to embrace Him and accept Him into their hearts. And this is what Muslims mean when they talk about submission to God. There's fear connected to these teachings. As is often the case with these religions, the reward of eternal heaven or paradise dangled in front of you comes hand in hand with an ominous threat. If you don't believe in God, if you reject Him, it is tantamount to rejecting love and life itself. And for that, according to common interpretations of Islam, you will be punished with unimaginable suffering in hell. And in Christianity, you will be eternally separated from God. Depending on the interpretation of that means you will be similarly punished in hell, like in Islam, or just annihilated while the believers revel in heaven for eternity. God loves you, sure, but if you reject Him, fear will keep you in line. Tied again to these teachings is the notion of original sin that is more distinctly outlined in Christianity, but is mirrored in how Islam operates. The biblical story of Adam and Eve is usually used to teach Christians that we are all fallen, that we've already been seduced to sin, which has separated us from God. God has always loved us, but we messed it up. So life is now a testing ground to see if we'll continue to lose ourselves to sin, or if we'll find our way back to God. In Islam, the all-knowing God is watching our every movement, monitoring our every thought to see if we pass this test or not. With Christianity, God's still doing all that 24/7 surveillance, but to pass the test, we just have to repent for our sins and accept Jesus who died for our sins. Or else, we'll face the consequences. In this way, religious ideas prey on our fears, first by informing us that we have a hole within ourselves, and by making us dread the eternal consequences of not filling that hole with God. Imagine the psychological torment that comes with believing you are tainted and sinful in your very core, particularly with people who have mental illness or who've made mistakes in their lives. Imagine the suffering and immense guilt of people who are taught things like how feelings of attraction towards another person mean that you've already committed adultery, one of the 10 commandments you can't violate, essentially convicting you of thought crime like in George Orwell's 1984. Imagine being attracted to another person of the same sex and believing you are sinning for a nature you can't control. Imagine the nightmares about hell or about missing out on heaven that believers of all ages have about themselves or loved ones because of those teachings. Imagine believing that the devil is real and seducing you to evil from within. Imagine all these things and you'll start getting an idea of how truly harmful both these religions are. Number 2, they devalue life. Islam and Christianity overtly tell us that the afterlife is more important than this life, that this life is fleeting and illusory, and that the afterlife is what we should focus on. Whether this afterlife is real or not is obviously important, and I see no evidence for its existence, but either way, this belief in an afterlife diminishes the value of everything about our lives here. Why suffer as an incomplete soul in this life when you can die a believer and be reunited with God that much sooner? You can see this in Islam and the appeal to martyrdom, which will attain you a great reward in paradise. And you can see it in both Islam and Christianity in the yearning and terror regarding the end times, the day of judgment. All my life, I've heard Muslims speak in this welcoming but fearful way about the purifying destruction of the day of judgment. How once it happens, all the injustices of the world will be rectified and the true believers will be united with God. Much in the same way, Christians invoke all the signs that the end times are fast approaching, and they look forward to moving past this sinful, lacking earth to be with God in bliss, and all those evildoers, they'll get their just rewards. You can see the direct harmful impacts of this apocalyptic thinking in the Israel-Palestine situation. There are Muslims who believe that this latest round of intensified conflict, the brutal bombing of Gaza right now, is a sign that the day of judgment is near. And a whole bevy of Christian pastors have crawled out of the woodwork to proclaim that the actions of Hamas on October 7 last year and Israel's retaliation since are signs that the rapture is imminent.
God is a Zionist, which means he says in the Bible, I wrote my name on Mount Zion. To be a Zionist means the land belongs to Israel. To be a Zionist means God fulfills his promises.
Just look at how happy these two guys are here, sitting in front of an image of Jerusalem on fire. Disturbing to say the least. These religious beliefs work towards intensifying hatred of the other side and support for continuing the conflict. On the Muslim side, it stokes hatred of Jewish people and dehumanizes them. On Israel's side, its oppression apartheid state have long been supported politically and financially by Christians in countries like America, some of whom believe that the return of Israel is fulfillment of biblical prophecy. This is how these religions work. Your relationships, your experiences in this life are diluted and incomplete, a means to a more fulfilling end. Your loved ones are important, sure, your community as well, but they are secondary to connecting with God, because God is love and your creator, and all that you see around you is temporary, shadow and dust. But the afterlife, though we can't actually see or experience it, well, that's the ultimate reality we should all be aspiring for. This leads us to point number 3. They warp our morality. Although they manifest differently and Islam's morality is worse, particularly when it comes to things like the treatment of women and the death penalty for apostates like myself, Christianity and Islam both have plenty of remnants of problematic yesteryear morality that many people have moved past. Want some examples? How about slavery, which is condoned in both the Quran and the Bible? Biblical scripture was used by American slave owners to justify their actions and to keep the Africans they enslaved from fighting for their freedom. As Ephesians 6:5 says, "Slaves, obey your earthly masters with respect and fear, and with sincerity of heart, just as you would Christ." And much like Muslim apologists do when defending problematic verses regarding slavery in the Quran, Christian apologists will argue it was meant for a specific time period. It doesn't refer to our modern understanding of slavery. The verse has been taken out of context. And the Bible and Quran share another thing in this sense. They're contradictory in many ways because some verses could be interpreted to be opposed to slavery. So maybe it's not a good idea to use ancient books with unclear authorship to determine our morality. I don't know. How about how religions teach homosexuals that their sexual orientations, which don't harm anyone in of themselves, are a sin and an abomination? How about my thought crime example earlier with Christianity? This is actually one area where Islam is better because you are not judged for your thoughts. In fact, Muslims are often taught that not acting on bad thoughts is considered a good deed. How about the state of abortion rights around the world right now, where Christians and Muslims are actively trying to steal women's agency and autonomy over their own bodies by inserting God and prioritizing their religions ahead of those women's autonomy, leading to inconceivably cruel actions like forcing a woman who has been sexually assaulted to give birth to and raise the child conceived from that assault. I could keep going, but for the sake of brevity, let's move on to my last point. Number 4, they encourage blind faith and the suspension of critical thinking. In this key way, Christians like David Wood actually enable Islam's blind faith and toxic teachings. Because these beliefs are reliant on faith, fear, and the willful suspension of critical thinking, they manifest in all these different religions with adherents that profess complete and utter certainty that they're right. In this sense, Muslims and Christians are drawing from the same well, and they sustain each other's belief systems by normalizing that it's perfectly acceptable to base your entire worldview, your values, the motivations of your actions on faith without good evidence and the neglect of critical thinking. Christians believe the resurrection happened based either solely on faith or accounts written in the Bible, and they're willing to suspend their skepticism in this regard when, for example, Paul wrote after the fact, and I use fact here very loosely, that 500 witnesses saw someone actually coming back from the dead, which, even if true, doesn't automatically mean Jesus is God. In a similar way, Muslims suspend their critical thinking about Islam's supernatural claims. You can really see how this problem is shared between Christians and Muslims in particular, because the reasons for their faith that justify their faith are often so similar. Consider the words of David Wood in his testimonial video that I mentioned earlier.
3 things started to destabilize my entire belief system. First, what's called the design argument finally hit me. I was looking at a wall and how the bricks were arranged, and I thought to myself, you know, if someone told me that these bricks went into this order by some process that didn't involve intelligence, I'd smack them in the mouth. And yet I believe that life formed without intelligence, when the most basic living cell is unimaginably more complicated than some bricks stacked on a wall. Second, I found out how Jesus' apostles died. Most of them went to their bloody deaths claiming that they had seen him risen from the dead. My explanation for the origin of Christianity had always been that the apostles made up a story so that they could spread his message, but now my explanation wasn't making sense. If you're willing to die for something, you have to believe it. When a terrorist blows himself up, he's obviously sincere. So the disciples, the apostles, had to believe what they were dying for, but this means that they were convinced that they had seen Jesus risen from the dead. If there were to be some sort of best person, that would require something like a standard of good, and that would require something like God, and then someone like Jesus would be better than me. I didn't know if Jesus was who he claimed to be, but I knew that it was Jesus or nothing. It was Jesus or nothing. If anyone has God's stamp of approval, it's the guy who rose from the dead. History is filled with dead options. Jesus is the last living option.
With some minor tweaks to substitute in Muhammad and Islam, these are all basically the reasons why Muslims believe. Muslims often invoke the design argument, and like Christians, they refuse to consider one alternative to their certainty. Maybe we're assuming that things are designed without enough evidence. Muslims often talk about the actions of the first Muslims, the Sahaba, who laid down their lives in the face of those who oppressed them as proof of their genuine faith and the truth of their convictions. Muslims frequently talk about using the example of Muhammad as their guide in overcoming the violence and darkness within them, much like David Wood does here with Jesus. Now, I'm sure these beliefs provide comfort and certainty to theists like David Wood, but that doesn't mean their beliefs are true. We have to consider this when religious certainty built on blind faith and fear is behind so much of the violence in our history that endures to this day. That certainty can convince us to do horrible things we wouldn't do otherwise. And because the God of these two religions doesn't actually show up to settle things, we're left with the contradictory opinions and interpretations of humans with all sorts of prejudices and agendas. That's why we can look at Islam and see it as justifying violence and killing people, and simultaneously condemning violence and killing people. Christianity has been used in many of the same ways. In the face of all of this, I wanted to figure out how Apostate Prophet addressed the similar problems between the two religions. Considering he opposes Islam just as much as me, I couldn't imagine sitting for hours on end, for years on end, with a Christian, deconstructing and critiquing Islam, going into the nuts and bolts of how Islam is problematic, without pointing out, well, isn't that what Christianity says or does too, a dozen times in each conversation? I couldn't imagine feeling comfortable with how a considerable chunk of my viewership are Christians blatantly preaching their faith in the comments and live chats, or to me directly. To satisfy my curiosity, I decided to watch a whole bunch of Apostate Prophet and David Wood's videos. Over the past 2 months, I've watched more than 30 hours of their content, with them speaking together or separately, and I've linked all the videos I watched of them below in the video description. And while it's nowhere near an exhaustive overview, I'm now left with a much better understanding of how they operate and why Apostate Prophet appears to have no issues of collaborating with Christians on a regular basis. So what did I notice? The first thing is that the hypocrisy evident in collaborating frequently with Christians is not a new criticism that Apostate Prophet has received. And although I'm only joking about him converting to Christianity or being a secret Christian, many have seriously speculated about this, with some saying he's being paid by Zionists and Christians, to the point where he even jokes about it and has posted a video, I think 2 years ago, called "Am I Becoming a Christian?" to dispel the rumors.
Even if I'm not converting to Christianity, even if I don't join Christianity, dear Christians, please pay me. Please give me money. And Jews, Zionists, I will never forget you. Please do not stop supporting me. Please, guys, I'm doing this for you. And Freemasons and Illuminati.
I also saw that Apostate Prophet and I are in complete agreement regarding the reasons why we don't believe in God.
When your religious beliefs mostly depend on your environment and your conditions which you can do nothing for, does it then really make sense that God punishes or rewards people based on what they believe in when they die? If Christianity is true and you have to follow Jesus in order to be saved, then the average person born in Pakistan as a Muslim is by default doomed. Don't come at me with, if you just look into your heart, if you really want it, if you just let God do his work, then he will reveal himself to you. It doesn't work that way. That's what Christians say, it's what Muslims say, and what others say. It doesn't work. But God, the Almighty, who created us all, and who knows us better than we know anybody else and ourselves, the God who created us flawed, punishes us eternally, simply for one wrong decision, no matter how big the decision is: disbelief. It is part of his plan that humans would fall, and that sin would come forth. If not, then God made a wrong plan, or an unstable plan. And no, God does not have some reason which we do not understand. That's only an excuse. And that is the only conclusion that Christians and Muslims can come to in this giant dilemma. Would I really create those sensitive beings with the ability to make that wrong choice? And create that bad place of suffering for that wrong choice? And then send people to that place for making that wrong choice? That is an extremely sadistic thing to do. And especially if we design our lives according to this baseless belief, then we would base our whole life, our one life, on something that we have no reason to believe in. No picture, no magic, no evidence, nothing at all. Believing out of fear, which is what many people, maybe even most people do, is just as unreasonable.
We're also aligned when he says this in another video, specifically critiquing the beliefs in objective morality of David Wood and other theists, in which he also outlines an outlook in life that I share.
I personally simply prefer to accept human nature as it is, to embrace our existence, to give up on fantasies and expectations of perfection, not to be scared of the fact that I can do whatever I want, and to recognize that I have enough good reasons to be good.
Here's where we diverge. Apostate Prophet has explained on numerous occasions going back several years that he isn't opposed to organized religion as a whole.
I am simply not an anti-theist who is opposed to religion and religions.
While, as we just saw, Apostate Prophet has acknowledged that faith for Christians and Muslims is built on fear and what appears to be a sadistic God, he doesn't seem to think that Christianity is harmful in the ways that I've explained in this video. He mostly focuses on how Islam is bad by comparison to other religions.
Christianity, Hinduism, Judaism, Buddhism, Jainism, and all the other religions don't order to spread the religion by the sword and subjugate everyone forcibly under religious supremacy. Islam does. Christianity says, who lives by the sword will die by the sword. While Islam gives the highest rank in heaven, because you have ranks in heaven, to the one who fights and dies for Allah. Islam punishes apostates with death. Christianity has no death penalty at all. There is no mention. And early churches condemned the death penalty, until the Romans messed it up at some point and instated unchristian death penalties. Christians reformed Christianity by taking it out of the hands of such powers and returning it to its fundaments, where love and forgiveness were much more important than punishing people. If we reformed Islam, the outcome would be the opposite.
Ultimately, he makes a misunderstanding that many of his viewers also propagate.
Stop telling me that all religions were equally bad. That I should criticize all of them if I criticize one of them. I don't believe in any God now. I don't have to go out there and say that all religions are equally bad, that the belief in God is completely dangerous and it will destroy our world and they will come after you and whatever. You know, I don't have to play those games.
That's missing the point I made earlier and that I'll repeat again here. Critics of Apostate Prophet's collaborations of Christians aren't saying that all religions are equally bad, but they do share in some bad things, and those things are worth addressing if you're criticizing one of them, because they're all connected in certain ways. For example, when Apostate Prophet says this,
no other religion is so much concerned and involved in people's private lives and bedrooms as Islam is.
That's likely true in many individual cases, but that doesn't eliminate the global impact of Christianity on banning or stigmatizing gay marriage, or women's abortion rights, let's say in the US recently, or the condemnation of condoms that has contributed to worsening the AIDS crisis in Africa. He sees Islam as the biggest threat, which is fair, and has said that he shouldn't be expected to criticize other religions, and he's right. But if he's serious about addressing the harms of Islam, it's odd not to see or care about the shared harms within Christianity that I've outlined in this video. He doesn't seem to think that the blind faith of one religion normalizes and enables the blind faith of another religion.
I can talk about Islam completely without directing people to something different instead, without telling them to stay away from Christianity. So many people told me, although I'm not a Christian, that they left Islam with my help, but they became Christians. Now, why would I have a problem with that? You know, that person won't go out and try to recruit people and try to blow himself up in the middle of London or whatever, or New York, whatever. You know, I'm totally fine with that.
In a very clear way, the actions of Muslim suicide bombers are drawn from the same faith-based inspirations and motivations of Christians who happily await Armageddon and the rapture. This is a point that Apostate Prophet seems to miss or doesn't consider important.
We are all simply seekers, living our lives, trying to do what we think is best. So I will not tell you not to believe in God. I'm simply telling you why I don't believe in God. I will just tell you that I wish you all the best. Best of luck in your search for truth.
Here's where we disagree the most. With this laissez-faire attitude of not criticizing belief in God built on blind faith, there's children all over the world in Christian families, Muslim families, and more who are being indoctrinated before they have a chance to think for themselves. Now, parents' rights to teach their kids what to practice should be respected, but the negatives of those teachings must be discussed and challenged as a society. So how does Apostate Prophet's atheism and attitude towards religion manifest in his interactions with David Wood? David Wood has a lot of valid and accurate criticisms of Islam. He's clearly done his homework on Islam. He understands how the theology works, the interplay of the Quran and Hadith, and the indefensible weaknesses in Islam, for example, the reverence of the Prophet Muhammad as an ideal template for all of us to follow, even though he married a 6-year-old girl. They have an easygoing chemistry which helps explain their popularity. It seems like an ideal partner to collaborate with on those fronts. So let's go back to one of my questions from the beginning of the video. Is it against some sort of rule for an ex-Muslim to talk to a Christian or befriend them? No, it isn't wrong. For me, it comes down to the nature of the interactions. I actually think it's good to interact with Christians and Muslims as an ex-Muslim to explore our differences and find common ground. But are the religious and philosophical differences between Apostate Prophet and David Wood addressed on a consistent, ongoing basis whenever their clashing worldviews and moralities come up in all their various video topics? Is there vigorous debate between them that keeps both parties honest? According to Apostate Prophet, that's exactly what they do.
And we are with people with two completely different worldviews. When we come together, we disagree about things. We openly, in front of the camera, talk about our disagreements and mock each other's worldviews. But hey, here we sit together and talk like normal human beings. Wow, what a surprise.
But in all the videos, all the live streams I watched, that's not what I saw. I didn't see many discussions about major theological disagreements. They're often aligned on things, and if differences of opinion did come up, Apostate Prophet would thoughtfully outline his position, and David Wood would consistently respond by teasing Apostate Prophet about his response and his atheism in general.
Now here's where my problem is with all of this.
Okay, negative AP again. Tell us why you hate everyone who disagrees with you. Go.
So I said earlier, for example, that I haven't felt that whole emptiness and that whole nothing can, replace that lack of meaning. I haven't felt that in a long time.
I'm the atheist without a God hole. Yeah, right.
What helped me, get over that very much was engaging deeply with certain philosophers and with certain ideas, such as Nietzsche, Albert Camus, and also, I would say to an extent, even Schopenhauer. And that actually kind of punched me in the face. But I feel like over the years, I kind of came to this whole conclusion.
You picked the worst possible, like if I were to make a list, the absolute worst.
but there's something really profound there.
You've pointed out that the takeaway from Nietzsche isn't necessarily a nihilism or something like that, but the takeaway of kind of his life is, right? You look at it like the whole thing was like, oh my goodness, are you joking?
Later on in that same live stream, Apostate Prophet explains in detail how the question of whether morality is relative and objective is oversimplifying things. And David Wood responds with dismissive humor once again.
I find the whole discussion of objectivism and relativism way too much of an oversimplification.
Except everything you just said shows that you believe it's relative. So
no, there is a difference, though. There is a difference here. There is a very clear difference here. But I would have.
Liar! Liar!
Here's another video where Apostate Prophet provides a long explanation for why he thinks the pursuit of meaning in religion is admirable.
It's a quest for understanding, for truth. It might not be true, but it's nice. It's respectable. But that then also leads me exactly to this problem. It looks like all the ideas that people came up with are just their best explanations.
Which are better than yours.
These are definitely lighthearted teases between two friends, and once again, I don't mind that. But it's generally pretty one-sided.
Welcome to atheism, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I was cracking up there. You were looking down at something, probably porn or something like that, because you're an atheist like Sam Harris. But
that's what I do. Yeah.
See? Oh, I don't see. Where's the evidence? Where? I don't see it. I don't see it. I'm AP. I'm an atheist. I see nothing.
It's almost always David Wood making a joke that Apostate Prophet usually laughs off without returning the favor. You can see the one-sidedness in instances where Apostate Prophet is asked about Christianity. I couldn't really find a moment where he teased David Wood about his faith or really critiqued Christianity. Actually, it tended to be him avoiding really answering questions about Christianity.
Answer the question. What's holding you back from Christianity?
I plead the fifth.
See?
I learned my rights as an American.
You see, you heard it here, folks. If I become a Christian, I would have to go to church, and I don't feel like it. I like to sleep in on Sundays. I would have to go to church. Layman Christian said, AP, have you had a real look into Christianity? Is it something you could be open to? Have you tried praying, God bless you both. I have to say, AP has looked a lot more into Christianity than a lot of Christians. So, but what's your response here?
I have. I've spent a lot of time on that, with that over the years.
Sorry, I'm laughing at the next comment I'm about to bring up.
Yeah, in different phases. Especially, there was a time when I was several years ago. Some people remember when I was plagued with anxiety and problems like that. There, I thought I really need something in my life. This is unbearable. At that time, I was really, looking into that very, very closely. So yeah, there were. I don't want to say anything about my conclusions right now. I did. Yeah.
This might be because Apostate Prophet has already addressed in past videos why he has problems with the morality of a Christian like David Wood.
Why do we exist because of some God? Why are these our answers? Why would that possibly be the answer? Because some people thousands of years ago figured it out, and we have books from those people which we can't even verify. Why am I to trust any of that? I don't trust anybody. I don't trust you. I don't trust myself. It would be unwise to trust that other people who are just as ignorant, just as flawed, just as stupid as I am, know the right answer to everything.
But if I was Apostate Prophet, I would be saying those very words to David Wood in every live stream. And I wonder how many of the Christians who watch Apostate Prophet today, whether on his channel or David Wood's, are aware he said these things and just think he's misguided and lost, but on the right path now in the company of David Wood. But I think the major challenges from Apostate Prophet don't come because he and David Wood agree that Christianity is inherently peaceful and free, and Islam isn't.
The goal of Christianity was, like, you preach the gospel and then people want to follow it, they follow it. If people don't want to follow it, they don't follow it. So it's advocating change from within. And so what we're seeing is in the world right now is people deciding, oh, we don't want to follow that. And then people realizing, oh, now we've got tons of problems in the world. And so what do? We need to be controlled. And so they're looking around for something to control them. And Islam, if you're looking around for something to control the population and control you and control women and control everyone around you and so on, and you could be a man and be on top, yeah, Islam starts looking really good.
Yeah.
Also, in the same way that Muslim apologists dishonestly or ignorantly say that bad things done by Muslims are the Muslims' fault, not Islam's fault, Apostate Prophet seems to see the faults of Christians as their faults alone or due to other factors, not the fault of Christianity.
The main reason why I oppose Islam so strictly is its order to fight the people and spread the religion by the sword. But Christianity and the Crusades... Shut up. The Crusades were a series of actions taken by later Christians, by the Catholics under their authority. It has virtually nothing to do with Christian fundaments.
There's another element to why Apostate Prophet is willing to work with David Wood and other Christians.
Hey everyone, I'm Elias Elohim and we're here with the best apologist ever and Apostate Prophet. You know, he's here too. That's cool.
As he explained in a community post from a few months ago, where are all the atheists, anti-theists, new atheists, secularists, leftists, liberals, progressives, and whatever you want to call them, when the Islamists are out there declaring on mainstream platforms that ex-Muslims, blasphemers, and even gay people should be killed? Nowhere. Where are the Christians by our side? So here's a big question. What's in it for them to be by our side? Is it pure concern and care for Muslims and ex-Muslims? That's part of it, I'm not going to deny that. But as is often the case with religious people, of Christians with their missionaries that offer clean water, medicine, and education in a package deal with their religious indoctrination, there's also no denying that their efforts come with the goal of propagating their faith. For years, I've seen Christians treat myself and other ex-Muslims such as Apostate Prophet like tools to help them prove that they have the one true faith. As this one commenter explains, Apostate Prophet must be influenced by his significant, constant contact with Christians. My question is, how much has that led to a blind spot regarding Christianity's problems, and how much has he compromised because of their influence and support? I'm concerned that there are many ex-Muslims and questioning Muslims who gravitate towards Apostate Prophet's content because he's so prominent, and many of them will see David Wood and consume his content advocating for Christianity, and they will see all the comments praising Christianity as being more meaningful, more true, and more loving than Islam. In my opinion, this is exchanging one harmful belief system that revolves around fear and guilt and promises of an afterlife for another? Does Apostate Prophet have an ethical responsibility to marshal his content and who he collaborates with to protect vulnerable viewers? I'll leave it up to you to decide, and I'll address David Wood with these words from Apostate Prophet.
Who are we to make big claims about a God who created you and me just because it feels good to believe? Because it feels like we have an answer and we can go through life and the painful ignorance of our existence more easily. I could talk about this forever, but this is basically a short summary of why I don't believe in God.
To wrap things up, I know that Apostate Prophet is well liked, so I want to address what some viewers who support him will say are my motivations for making this video. Am I secret Muslim or sympathetic to Islam? Just watch some of my past videos on Islam, particularly these ones where I talk about the toxic teachings of Islam and how the Prophet Muhammad condoned the massacre and enslavement of an entire Jewish tribe, and you tell me what you think. Regarding me hating Christianity because Islam still influences me, I don't hate Christianity, I don't hate Christians. I'm focused on the harms of its teachings on Christians and everyone else. Leaving Islam is what helped me see the problems with the blind faith and fear in other religions like Christianity. Regarding whether I made this video to piggyback on Apostate Aladdin's video criticizing Apostate Prophet, I actually came up with the idea for the video in, I think, late January, so it just takes me a long time to make a video as complex as this. And I'm not resentful or jealous or envious of Apostate Prophet's success. As I mentioned earlier, I don't envy being the lightning rod he has become or the threats he receives, but speaking as an ex-Muslim with a much smaller viewership, I am concerned about his neglect of the issues I brought up in this video, because it impacts the perception of me and other ex-Muslims who don't have his big platform. And lastly, am I lashing out at Apostate Prophet because he supports Israel? Well, I don't like that he almost wholly supports Israel and its ongoing destruction of Gaza, and that he rejects that Israel oppresses Palestinians in an apartheid state it's created. And I've explained exactly why I think Apostate Prophet is wrong in a live stream with Apostate Aladdin, which I've linked in the video description below. I've also linked a video where I address what many supporters of Israel's actions, Apostate Prophet included, are not fully appreciating or respecting about the Palestinian side of things and ignoring on the Israeli side. Of course, I am Palestinian, so this issue is personal to me, but that is not why I'm criticizing Apostate Prophet for his close collaborations with David Wood, and I don't think his relationship with David Wood or the recent trip he took with him to Israel is the reason why Apostate Prophet holds his views on Israel and Palestine. Apostate Prophet came out with a video more than 5 years ago outlining his views on the conflict, and it doesn't seem like much has changed in his views since then. I see these as separate topics. The topic here is the common harms between Christianity and Islam, and how Apostate Prophet is neglecting that reality despite focusing all his energies on attacking Islam. For those asking why I don't talk to Apostate Prophet directly, I didn't even consider it initially because of how small my channel is, but then I did reach out to him after my live stream of Apostate Aladdin asking for a conversation or to just speak privately. Whoever handles his Twitter account saw the message but did not respond. I also reached out to David Wood through a mutual contact more recently, but have not heard from him either. But if they want to speak to me privately or publicly about the subject, I'm happy to oblige them. Thank you so much for watching, as always, and please like this video and subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll be back with another video soon.